Ronke Adeyemi was born on a rainy August morning in a quiet village nestled deep within the hills of Ekiti State, Nigeria. Her first cries pierced the stormy sky, louder than the thunder that echoed across the landscape. "This child will be brilliant," the village midwife had declared, tightening her wrapper and nodding with certainty. Time proved her right. From an early age, Ronke exhibited an insatiable curiosity. She asked questions that even adults found difficult to answer. While the other children played traditional games or danced barefoot in the dusty fields after school, Ronke sat under the shade of a mango tree behind their modest mud house, reading second-hand textbooks with missing pages and scribbled margins. These books had once been discarded at the village dump, but to her, they were treasures. Her parents were humble farmers. Her father, a man with calloused hands and gentle eyes, tilled the earth from dawn till dusk. Her mother, ever resilient, sold palm oil and vegetables at the local market. They earned barely enough to feed their 6 children, usually yam in the morning and a watery soup at night. Yet they believed deeply in education, especially her father, who often said, "Education is the only weapon that poverty fears." Ronke was the 3rd child and wore hand-me-down uniforms from her elder sister. Her school sandals were patched and restitched more times than she could count. Still, she walked to school each morning with her head held high. At St. Agnes Primary School, she quickly became the pride of her teachers. Bright, focused, and respectful, she consistently topped her class and earned the nickname, the girl of the books. However, the path was never smooth. There were months when her name was publicly called out during assembly for unpaid school fees. More than once, the headmistress politely reminded her that she could not remain in school unless the balance was cleared. Yet, every time, her father would arrive, his shirt soaked with sweat from farm work, holding a crumpled envelope with just enough money to keep her in class. Ronke's dreams were vivid. She longed to become a banker, not just because of the elegance associated with the job, but because it represented stability, dignity, and opportunity. She envisioned herself in a tailored suit, walking confidently into an office with air conditioning and polished floors. More importantly, she wanted to lift her family from poverty, rebuild their home with concrete walls and a proper roof, buy her mother a sewing machine, and fund her younger siblings' education. After secondary school, she graduated with excellent results. However, there was no money for university. Undeterred, she began teaching at a nearby nursery and primary school. The salary was meager, barely enough for transport and food, but she saved what little she could. In the evenings, she offered free tutoring in the neighborhood, hoping that one day, someone would notice her dedication and offer her a better opportunity. And then came December. It was time for the village's annual end-of-year celebration, a festival that brought joy, music, food, and, most importantly, visitors from the cities and abroad. That was when Ronke saw Bola. Bola had been her childhood friend. They had once shared roasted groundnuts and scribbled secrets in old notebooks. But her family had moved to Ibadan when they were both 12. Now, Bola had returned, radiant, confident, and unmistakably transformed. Her skin glowed, her wig was sleek and expensive-looking, and she carried a designer handbag that sparkled under the sun. The reunion was warm. They laughed and caught up as though no time had passed. Bola spoke quickly and excitedly about her life abroad, about modern buildings, clean water, supermarkets open all night, and salaries paid in dollars. "So, what exactly do you do?" Ronke asked, wide-eyed. "I work as a nanny," Bola replied, adjusting her sunglasses. Just one child. I clean a little, cook sometimes, and keep him company. The house is big, I have my own room, I eat well, and my salary comes every month without fail. Ronke listened in awe. To her, it sounded like paradise. Could it really be that simple? You can go too, Bola said, lowering her voice. In fact, I can help you. No stress, no agent problems. You'll be working and sending money home in 6 months. Ronke hesitated. She wanted to believe it. Bola had never lied to her in the past, and she seemed sincere, persuasive, even. That night, Ronke lay awake on her thin mattress, staring at the zinc roof as the wind whispered through the cracks in the window. Her heart was heavy, but hopeful. She imagined buying her father new clothes, surprising her mother with a refrigerator, and registering her siblings in private schools. Could this be the breakthrough they had all been praying for? After much reflection and discussion with her family, she made a decision. She borrowed 150,000 Nigerian nairas from a neighbor, agreeing to repay triple within a year. She packed her clothes into a large traveling bag and baked chin-chin to take along. Her mother wept silently while her father held her close and whispered, "Be wise, my daughter. Not everything that glitters is gold." Ronke nodded, smiling through her tears. "I'll come back successful," she promised. But what she didn't know was this: there was no nanny job waiting for her. She was being trafficked. The day of departure arrived faster than Ronke had expected. The sun had barely risen when she stepped out of her family's compound, her small bag slung over her shoulder and her heart pounding with a mix of hope and anxiety. Her parents stood beside her, holding hands in silent prayer. Her mother had tied her wrapper twice as tight, unable to hide the tremble in her hands. Her father's eyes, usually steady and clear, were glassy with worry. Bola had promised that everything had been arranged. A man named Mr. Felix, whom she simply referred to as Uncle, would escort Ronke to Lagos and take care of all the necessary paperwork and airport processes. According to Bola, Ronke didn't even need a passport of her own, just 2 passport photos, a few clothes, and a strong heart. He helps girls travel every week, Bola had reassured. Just be respectful, quiet, and obedient. Once you get there, life will begin to change. Ronke had no reason to doubt her. When Mr. Felix arrived, he wore dark glasses and a pressed white kaftan. He hardly greeted anyone and barely looked Ronke in the eye. He simply nodded once, picked up her bag, and motioned for her to follow. "Is that him?" her father asked in a low voice. "Yes," Ronke replied, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. "Be careful," her mother whispered, hugging her tightly. "Watch and pray. If anything feels wrong, come back home. We'll still be proud of you." Ronke nodded, fighting back tears. She didn't want to cry, not today. Not when she was finally taking a bold step toward a better future. The journey to Lagos was long and uncomfortable. Mr. Felix barely spoke. When Ronke tried to start a conversation, he waved her off and focused on his phone. She stared out the window as familiar landscapes turned into city scenes, traffic jams, tall buildings, and loud hawkers weaving through cars. By the time they arrived at the rundown lodge in Ikeja where they would stay the night, her head was spinning. There were 3 other girls at the lodge. One looked no older than 16. The oldest, a woman named Aisha, was in her late 20s and appeared to know the routine. She explained everything to Ronke that night while they lay on thin mattresses in a small, stuffy room. "We're leaving tomorrow night," Aisha said, checking her nails. "They'll give us instructions at the airport. Just follow quietly. Don't ask questions." "But what kind of work are we going to do exactly?" Ronke asked. Aisha gave a tired smile. "Whatever they ask you to do. That's how it works. If you're lucky, you get a good madam. If not, well, you endure." Ronke blinked. "Madam?" "Yes. The woman you'll serve. Or the man. Depends on who buys your contract." Something inside Ronke froze. "Buys my contract?" Aisha sighed. "You really don't know anything, do you?" Before Ronke could ask further, a loud knock on the door silenced them. It was Mr. Felix, warning them to sleep early. "Your flight is tomorrow night. Don't oversleep." As the light went off and the room slipped into silence, Ronke's heart thudded heavily. She clutched the small Bible her mother had given her and stared at the ceiling, where a slow fan spun tiredly. By the next day, her doubts had multiplied. But it was too late to turn back now. She had borrowed money, made promises, and told her whole village that she was traveling abroad. How could she return without shame? At nightfall, they were ushered into an old bus that took them to the airport. Mr. Felix handed each of them an envelope and told them what to say at immigration. "Smile. Don't talk too much. If they ask questions, just say you're visiting family. Once you reach the other side, someone will pick you up." Ronke held her breath as they passed through airport security. Her heart hammered in her chest, but everything went surprisingly smoothly. Her documents, though fake, were accepted. No one asked questions. Before she knew it, she was seated on a plane, staring out of the tiny window, her hands trembling on her lap. As the plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the air, Ronke tried to breathe. This was it. Her dream was finally beginning, or so she thought. She didn't sleep throughout the flight. Her thoughts were consumed with images of home, her father watering the yam farm, her mother stirring a bono soup over firewood, her younger brother shouting as he chased goats across their compound. She imagined herself returning in 2 years, dressed smartly, with a suitcase full of gifts, and stories of success on her lips. But as the clouds parted and the plane descended into unfamiliar terrain, Ronke had no idea what really awaited her on the other side. She had crossed a border, not just a physical one, but a line that would change her life forever. The plane touched down just after sunset. Ronke stared out the window, her heart fluttering between excitement and anxiety. The runway lights blinked like tiny stars as the aircraft taxied to a halt. She clutched her small handbag tightly, whispering a prayer under her breath. As she entered the arrival hall, a tall man in a white dishdasha held a paper with her name scrawled in large black letters, Ronke. She smiled and approached him cautiously. He didn't smile back. "You. Come," he said sharply, grabbing her bag without waiting for an answer. She followed, confused. "Excuse me, sir. Where is Madame Bola?" she said. He cut her off with a grunt. "No talk. Just come." He led her to a white SUV parked outside. The air smelled of petrol and unfamiliar spices. Inside the car, Ronke tried asking again, but the men ignored her completely. After 30 minutes, they pulled into a compound with tall gates, sleek tiles, and marble pillars. It looked like a palace, but something felt cold. Sterile. Wrong. Inside the house, she was led straight to the kitchen where a woman in black abaya and heels stood with her arms folded. "This is her?" the woman asked in Arabic. The men nodded. "Yes." "Nu Kadima." That word, Kadima, echoed in Ronke's ears. She didn't understand the language, but the tone chilled her. The woman's lips curled into a cold smile as she walked up to Ronke. From that moment on, Ronke Adeyemi ceased to exist. She was no longer a person, only Kadima. Kadima, wash plates. Kadima, clean toilet. Kadima, hurry. Her name was never spoken again. Her passport and phone were taken away without explanation. She was told she couldn't leave the compound. No internet. No contact with the outside world. No salary. When she asked when she would be paid, the woman laughed. "You come here to work. We feed you. That is your pay." Ronke quickly realized the truth. She had been trafficked. Her duties began at 4 a.m. and ended after midnight. She scrubbed floors, washed piles of clothes, cooked massive meals for a family of 8, and was expected to serve tea at precisely the right temperature. A single mistake resulted in slaps, harsh words, or denial of food. Even the children treated her like a slave. They threw toys at her, spilled juice on the floor just to watch her clean it up, and laughed when their mother yelled. At night, she wasn't given a bed. She slept on the cold kitchen floor, beside the trash bin, sharing the space with cockroaches and rats. She was fed leftovers, mostly stale bread or burnt rice scraped from the pot. Sometimes, she went 2 days without a proper meal. Once, she fell ill with a terrible fever. Dizzy and shaking, she asked for medicine. Her boss glared at her. "You think we are hospital? Go work. Or you go back to Nigeria." There was no mercy. No compassion. Only labor. The woman of the house monitored everything, every movement, every breath. Ronke couldn't speak freely, laugh, or even hum without being scolded. She began to shrink, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Her hope began to wither. But she clung to one thing, her mind. Despite the pain, Ronke noticed how the children were being tutored. She silently memorized lessons, corrected math problems in her head while mopping the floors, and recited English phrases to herself while scrubbing toilets. Still, the darkness around her deepened. After nearly 2 years of unpaid servitude, her body began to fail. One afternoon, while cooking, she collapsed on the kitchen tiles. Sweat poured from her body, her vision blurred, and her breathing was shallow. Her boss didn't call for help. They left her lying there, afraid she might die in their home and bring legal trouble. Panicking, the family contacted the agent. "She is dying," the men told them. "I don't want problem." That night, in the dead of darkness, Ronke was dragged into a van. Her limp body was dumped like trash by a dumpster behind the agency building. Her phone and passport were stuffed into her bag and left by her side. She lay there, motionless, unable to scream or even cry. Her lips cracked from thirst. Her body trembled from fever. All around her, the night was silent, except for the occasional hum of passing cars and the scratching of rats. But even then, something deep inside her whispered, This is not the end. Ronke's body trembled as she lay beside the dumpster, half-conscious and weak. Her skin was pale, her lips dry, and her clothes torn. Life had nearly left her, but her soul refused to give up. Fate, however, was not finished with her. That morning, as the sun rose over the city, a black SUV pulled up near the alleyway. A tall man in a white kaftan and cap stepped out, flanked by a security aide. He was a doctor, Dr. Khalil Ahmed, a well-respected Arab-Nigerian consultant who ran a private hospital in the city. He had taken a wrong turn while on his way to the clinic but spotted something unusual near the dumpster. Curiosity and compassion made him stop. "Subhanallah," he whispered when he saw Ronke. "She's barely breathing." Without hesitation, he called for an ambulance and supervised as she was rushed to his hospital. Ronke drifted in and out of consciousness, unaware of the angel God had sent her. For 2 weeks, Dr. Khalil's team nursed her back to life. She was given food, clean water, medication, and a safe place to sleep. Every day, Dr. Khalil would check on her personally, ensuring she felt no fear. When Ronke could finally speak, she told her story, everything, from her journey out of Nigeria to the abuse, the burned scars, the name they gave her, Kadima. Dr. Khalil listened in stunned silence. He had heard of such things, but never this close, never this real. That evening, he went home and told his wife, a fierce and intelligent woman named Commissioner Amina Ahmed, the commissioner of police in that region. Commissioner Amina wasted no time. The very next day, she launched a formal investigation. Within days, Ronke's agent in Nigeria was arrested. The former Arab boss and his wicked wife were also captured. But the biggest fish was Bola, the woman who had orchestrated everything. A search warrant was issued. Bola tried to flee, but she was tracked and arrested in a sting operation that spanned 2 states. Justice came swiftly. The agent, Bola, the Arab boss, and his wife were sentenced to 5 years in prison without bail. For Ronke, it wasn't revenge, it was closure. Underscore 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 underscore. Dr. Khalil and his wife took Ronke into their home. She lived with them as part of their family, not as a maid, but as a sister. She helped around the house and tutored their children. One day, as she was teaching their 10-year-old son mathematics, Amina walked in and paused. "Ronke," she said, "are you a trained teacher?" Ronke smiled. "No, Ma. But I've always loved maths. I used to teach back home." Amina nodded. "You're very good. You explain better than some of the teachers at his school." That was the beginning of a new chapter. With their support, Ronke enrolled at a nearby university to study mathematics education. She worked hard, often staying up late, tutoring others, reading endlessly. Her scars didn't define her, they pushed her. She graduated with first-class honors. She was then offered a full scholarship to pursue her master's and PhD in the United Kingdom. Dr. Khalil and Amina were there to send her off at the airport, tears in their eyes and pride in their hearts. Years later, Ronke would become a renowned mathematics professor in one of the UK's most prestigious universities. Her research won multiple international awards. Her name became synonymous with brilliance and resilience. Yet, every year, she returned to Nigeria, not as the broken girl they once called Kadima, but as Professor Ronke Adeyemi, a symbol of hope and living proof that your past does not determine your future. And through it all, she never forgot the family that saw her in the dirt and lifted her to glory.